All right, students, so yesterday we talked a little bit about vocabulary, about fossils and what a fossil actually is, and today we're going to dig into talking about what fossils can actually tell us about the past. So the entire fossil record, students, makes up all the fossils that have been discovered, and that is showing us the history of life on Earth over time. Fossils are actually records. They're really, really good records of ancestors of animals or plants that live today. So when you see a fossil, okay, for instance, like a trilobite fossil, and they kind of look like this, okay, when you see a trilobite fossil, okay, trilobites are organisms that lived millions of years ago, and they are ancestors of arthropods, so grasshoppers and butterflies and beetles and lobsters and crabs. These are ancestors of these organisms. Students, fossils can also tell us a great deal about changes in the environment over time. So let's say, for instance, in our picture here off to the side, we have a number of layers of rocks, okay? We have a number of layers of rocks. And let's say, for instance, that in this first layer, right down here, we are seeing that there's a shell right here, there's a plant right here, and there's a fish right next to it. So this was an aquatic environment. But maybe in the layers above it, there are no more fossils, and all of a sudden, fossils start showing up here that say that, hey, there are fossils from where there's not an ocean, or from this land. There's maybe a fossil of a fern and an organism that kind of looks like a turtle. Something that may have been like, oh, there was some water, but maybe not the same kind of tropical environment as we are seeing down here. Okay, this is evidence that the environment is changing over time. So fossils can also then tell us how life forms can change over time, because maybe you'll see the fossils down below that are similar down here to ones up here, but these have different structures. Okay, so maybe they have evolved over time, so this seashell has evolved to look slightly different. That is what fossils can tell us. As you look at sedimentary rock layers, students, these can also show us history of our Earth, okay? As layers of sediment, as sediment is deposited, compacted, and cemented together in order to create sedimentary rock, you are going to get very clear evidence of the environment that formed that rock. So let's say, for instance, if you've ever been to a river before, you may have noticed that the rocks there are well-rounded and smooth. Like if you've ever been to the North Shore up by Duluth, there's a lot of moving water up there. And so if you find a layer of sedimentary rock that has rounded stones within it, what can you say maybe about that specific environment? You could say that there was a lot of running water at that time. So when you look at the sediment that's within that sedimentary rock, it can tell you about that specific environment. Now, students, if you've ever been to beach, or if you've ever been to a large body of water, you may have seen under the water that the sand creates ripples just like this over here where the star is. So the sand actually will create ripples underneath because of the waves. Oftentimes, what's really cool is you will see this within sedimentary rocks. So if you see ripple marks or if you see mud cracks within a sedimentary rock, that's also going to tell you more about what's happening at that time when that rock was created. Another part that I wanted to talk to you about is that just the big picture here, that Earth's surface is always changing. And so you may have heard at one point in time this thing called Pangea right here. This was a point in time when all of the continents were pulled together in a large formation. Off to the left-hand side here, students, I've drawn a very rough sketch of what Pangea is. Now, later on, we will talk specifically how the continents have moved. They've moved through the movement of plate tectonics. Plate tectonics, so the theory of plate tectonics says that all the continents are sitting on plates that make up the surface of the Earth, and they are moving, constantly moving. So many millions of years ago, scientists believed that all the continents were really close together in this form called Pangea. And that over time, as you can see with these arrows, these continents then drifted apart. So if we have Africa here, South America here, North America here, and Europe over here, just to give you an idea. Now the cool thing is that as Pangea broke apart, parts of the different continents actually give us pieces of evidence that they were still connected. For instance, there was a mountain range here at the very center of Pangea. As the continents of Africa and North America moved separate to each other, they actually kept those mountains. So in northern Africa, you have a range of mountains here, and in the eastern United States, you also have a range of mountains. And scientists have determined they have similar fossils, they look very similar, they have similar attributes, and so that's just another piece of evidence that at one point in time, these continents were close together. These are the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern United States and the Atlas Mountains in northern Africa. And so, students, the distribution of rocks and fossils, as well as mountains, just as I talked about in the last slide, is evidence that the Earth's surface is always changing. Okay, and that it has been changing not only through rocks breaking down, changing and moving over time, but through motion of the plates that make up the Earth. All right, and that is all that I have for you today, students. So what I'm going to have you do is, for this lesson, if you have any questions, feel free to come to me with them, or send me a note if you are at home over the weekend, and I will help you with it in class next week. Thank you so much.